You are now tuned in to the Storm Tracker podcast.
Welcome back to the Storm Tracker podcast. I'm Marcus Benjamin, representing CanesCounty.com, part of the Rivals.com network. Make sure you subscribe to the Storm Tracker podcast on all platforms. Also subscribe to this YouTube channel live from Canes County. This is our weekly edition of Scouting the Opponent, and Miami, of course, plays the Louisville Cardinals this week. So I've got Ty Spalding joining me from Louisville Rivals Cardinals Sports. Thank you for joining me today, Ty.
Marcus, I appreciate you having me, man. Big game this Saturday.
Yeah, and it's now a trophy game, Ty. Which is different for this series, but they will be battling for Howard Schnellenberger's boots, I guess you could call them. So it should be a fun one down at Hard Rock Stadium. So Louisville has done a great job at recruiting a lot of South Florida players lately. You've got several players that have decided to make the trip up north to Louisville, Kentucky, to spend their college years. Why think that's been the case as of late, Ty?
Yeah, I mean, I think the place to start is you have to go back to the Charlie Strong era at Louisville. That really got the Miami pipeline started, and really it all begins with Teddy Bridgewater, out of Miami Northwestern High School down there. His high school class that featured, Michael Lee Harris,
Yes.
some other guys that really paved the way. Corvin Lamb, that's a name from the past as well. That whole era just started a really strong connection from Miami to Louisville. And since Charlie Strong started that, it's continued and it's developed into a place that kids from down there really always give a look to. And even going to Tutu Atwell, who was also Miami Northwestern product. He was just the guest. Louisville has a guest before every home game to get the game started. They push a horn, and he was there on Thursday night for the Virginia game. Tutu Atwell for the Rams, and so just ever since the Charlie Strong days, Louisville's just had a really good rapport with the Miami area, and obviously this year's team is no exception. Stanquan Clark is a true freshman that's from down there that they really really honed in on and really had to beat out some big time schools for. And then you even go to an older guy like Jarvis Brownlee, who's from down there as well, transfer from Florida State. So I really think it's been a accumulation of Charlie Strong getting it started, and just the coaches that have come in after him really keeping those connections in a good place, and a lot of kids from down there have seen the success that the Teddy Bridgewaters have had, the Tutu Atwells have had, and they've just given Louisville a serious look when the time comes to pick a school.
Yeah, absolutely. All those players that you named are kind of South Florida legends down here, especially Teddy Bridgewater. Tutu Atwell still does a 7-on-7 down here now yearly. Michael Lee Harris just took over a head coaching job at one of the powerhouse schools down here at Miami Northwestern. Stanquan Clark was one of the best linebackers. I thought he was the best linebacker in South Florida last year. So for Louisville to get Stanquan Clark was a really big get for the Louisville Cardinals. And that, I don't think that's going to slow down anytime soon. I'm pretty sure they'll continue the pipeline and, to get players like Brownlee to transfer. I believe originally he was at Florida State, now at Louisville. He came out of Carroll City. The list just kind of goes on and on for
And let
Louisville.
me jump in real quick. I would be remiss to not mention T.J. Capers, who is more of as recent as it gets, a reclass that joined Louisville's team, and that was a big get as well. So I didn't mean to cut you off there, but as more names come to mind, I just thought I'd mention him as well. He was a huge get in this most recent recruiting cycle.
Yeah, I'm glad you did mention him as well. Definitely an outstanding talent out of Columbus, state champion down here in Miami. So, yeah, it just kind of continues to build for the Louisville Cardinals. So it's going to be a homecoming for a lot of players once they get down here in South Florida. So not only do they, obviously want to win the game for obvious reasons, trophy game, um, ticket to the ACC championship game, but just to do it in front of their families as well. It's going to be huge for some of those guys as well as the Miami guys as well, because it's senior day for the Hurricanes. So wanted to also talk about head coach Jeff Brohm. Obviously, he's made a huge difference for the Louisville Cardinals. And what have you seen from him this season and this offense? Like how much of a difference has he made? Obviously, he's made a difference with the record because the Louisville Cardinals were announced as the 10th ranked team in the country last night when it comes to the college football playoff. But from your perspective, Ty, how big of a difference has he made for this football program?
He's made a huge difference, and I think when you look at the last guy that was here compared to Jeff Brom, Jeff is from Louisville. He played at Louisville. The Brown family is essentially the first family of this program, and you're never going to find anyone that cares more than Jeff does. The last guy that was here, Scott Satterfield, just he never really vibed with this city. He never really vibed with the fan base, and Jeff is a guy that he gets it. He understands what this fan base is about. He understands what the city's about because he played here. He's from here. He lived here his whole life, and he cares just as much as the biggest, diehard crazy fan does. And you can't put a dollar amount on caring, and that's where it all starts. Is Jeff Brom cares. He wants this program to win just as bad, as John Smith does. That's been going to games for 20 years, and that's you really can't put a price on that. But going into the specifics, he's really instilled a belief in the locker room that wasn't there previously. The first game of the season, they were trailing by two scores at halftime, and he really talked to the guys at the break and after the game, after they came back and won. A lot of the players were saying how you know none of them believed they would lose the game. They all just knew they were going to come back and win. And they're 4-0 in one possession games this season. Um, the Georgia Tech game, as I mentioned, the Indiana game, they had to get a goal line stop to win that game. NC State, they had to come from behind, and then Virginia most recently they had to come from behind. So really, when you talk about Jeff and what he's done and why this season has gone so well, I think it all starts with just the way that he's gotten this locker room to buy into what he's trying to get them to do, the way he's gotten this locker room to believe that, if they play for the guy next to him, if they play, every down, every series, um, you know, as hard as they can, then they're going to win every game they're in. And really, I think that's where it all starts. And then, just from the personnel and the roster construction, I think, he really did an awesome job with the transfer portal. seemingly every transfer he's brought in has really hit the ground running and it's made an impact. Both starting offensive tackles are transfers. Jamari Thrash, the second leading receiver in the ACC, is a transfer. Both starting safeties are transfers, and even Isaac Garindo, a running back's a transfer that's has had a 3 touchdown performance 2 weeks ago, and then backed it up with a game winner on Thursday against Virginia. So, I think Jeff's just done an awesome job of really getting this locker room to believe in what he's doing, to buy into what he's trying to get established here from a culture standpoint. And then the talent acquisition has obviously, been there as well. So I think those are the main things that really have Louisville in a position to have a special season.
Absolutely. And Louisville and Miami are two teams that are really kind of embracing NIL, from what I understand from your side as well. Is that the truth? Do you feel like they're really kind of embracing, I guess, this new era of college football that is, making sure these kids, are able to profit, I guess, off of their name, image, and likeness?
Yeah, I mean Louisville's collective has done an amazing job. Just since all of this became legal, they've really just always tried to stay ahead of the curve in everything they do. And there's some really smart people that lead the collective, some really dedicated donors and boosters that just have really put Louisville in a position to attract high level talent, both from the high school ranks and from the transfer portal ranks. And I think the winning that Louisville's done this year has only helped them, get people to jump in and contribute. When you talk about return on investment, there's no better ROI than a winning team, in my opinion. And this team has really shown that NIL can directly impact the results on the field. So yeah, Louisville's just done an amazing job. The infrastructure they have in place, the the resources that they have, the collective is now the official collective of the university. So they work hand in hand with the school. They did a flash give at a game earlier this season and raised a ton of money just from putting a QR code up on the scoreboard. So they've really done some interactive things to get fans involved, and I just think that's been a big part of what they've done on the field this season and what they're going to continue to do under Jeff Brohm.
Good stuff. And I've got, once again, Ty Spalding joining me from Louisville rivals Cardinal Sports. So let's talk a little X's and O's, Ty. I mean, first off, how's the offense from what you've seen? What kind of offense does this do the Cardinals run? Is it high tempo? Do they usually huddle? It's more of a spread look. What kind of offense does Jeff Brohm run over there in Louisville?
Yeah, so Jeff historically has been a spread offense guy that is pretty pass heavy, and really this year at Louisville he's had to adjust, what he likes to do, and he's had to evolve his offense just because they've been so successful running the ball. So really, he's gone from a purely spread style offense to mixing in a lot of pro tendencies. I formation, pistol formation. Having a lead blocker as we see here on the screen. This was against Notre Dame. Um, having a fullback, as a lead blocker in the running game. So he's been way more balanced this season than he has been in the past. In the past, he's really been 60-40 throwing the ball. And this year it's been, I don't have the exact numbers, but it's pretty close to 50-50 this year, run to pass. And a big reason for that is just how well they've ran the ball with the running backs and the offensive line. So really, what you'll see is a quarterback that Jeff's really not trusted to do a whole lot so far. Obviously, there's been games where Louisville's had to come from behind and they've had to throw the ball, but for the most part, Jeff has put his quarterback in positions to really just limit mistakes and don't try to do too much. That's kind of been the philosophy in the approach that Jeff's taken this year is just run the ball and have his quarterback, make some easy throws and just try to establish some confidence. And in their biggest wins, like against Notre Dame, they really didn't. The quarterback didn't have to do a whole lot. They just established the run and they got a lead and they just leaned on their defense. And last
Yeah.
week against Virginia, they did get down and they did have to turn it over to Plummer to make some plays, and he made a play. He threw a 60-yard touchdown pass to tie the game. So it's really been kind of a change of pace just based on personnel and what they're good at. When you look at what Jeff likes to do, when he was at Purdue and Western Kentucky, he just really likes to throw the ball. And this year, he's just not really done that. And like I said, a lot of that has to do with his personnel and what this team is excelled in. So the offense is going to be run heavy. It's going to be some pistol looks, some high formation, some read option looks.
Yeah.
But overall, it's not been a typical Jeff Brohm offense.
Yeah, it sounds very similar to Miami because Shannon Dawson likes to run a spread, pass heavy type of offense as well. But since the running game and the offensive line has been getting such a great push, he's gone to more of a run heavy type of offense. So both offensive coordinators sounds like they're kind of adjusting to their personnel. And obviously we're watching, Louisville's arguably their best performance of the year, beating Notre Dame. But there's been games where this team has kind of been kind of vulnerable at times, or looked, where they might actually lose the game, and including last week against Virginia, where they needed to come back in the fourth quarter to win that game. So, in your perspective, kind of what happened at the game in that game? How did they get down, and why did they need that 17-point comeback to beat Virginia?
I mean, really, every game that Louisville's been in that's been close, and obviously they have the one loss. The common theme in all of the close games and the one loss is just turning the ball over at the most inopportune times. That's really been the story of their close games and the loss that they had to Pittsburgh. And on Thursday, Plummer threw a pick six that just really changed the momentum of the game. It put Louisville on their heels, and it gave a Virginia team that was probably on the verge of rolling over. It gave them confidence that they could win the game. And I think that's just really been the thing with Jack Plummer is in the close games that Louisville's been in is he's just made some egregious mistakes, some inexcusable mistakes from just a decision making standpoint that you really just have to be better as a 60-year guy. You just some of the mistakes he's made, you just look at them and you just they're just mistakes that you can't make. And really, when you make a mistake like he did in the Virginia game, a pick six, it's you just can't hand a team that struggles to score. You just can't hand them 6 points. You just can't.
Right.
So really, that was a lot of the story on Thursday is just a mistake at a really bad time, and a freshman quarterback that Virginia had that gave Louisville some problems with his feet. I think that was also a story. Is Virginia's true freshman just really mobile and really quick out of the pocket. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was the story for Thursday, and really the whole season when they've had to come back or when they've lost. It's been just a mistake at a really bad time that has put Louisville on their heels and has put Louisville in a position to where they've had to play from behind um, or have to sort it out at the end. So I think that's really been the story, is just turning the ball over and making mistakes that you can't have from a 6-year quarterback.
Once again, sound like you're talking about Miami here, just because Miami has kind of struggled with turnovers as well, especially from the quarterback position. And if they didn't have those struggles, who knows? I think their record would probably be very similar to Louisville's right now with one loss. But let's talk about some of the playmakers that Louisville does have. Obviously, Jawhar Jordan has been outstanding as a running back. You talked about Thrasher, who's also been an outstanding receiver. Just talk about some of the big time players that Louisville has and what makes them so dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, it all starts with Jawhar Jordan. He's second in the conference in rushing, and that's with him missing a game and really being banged up the last couple games and being limited. And really, when you talk about what makes him special, you have to start with his vision. I mean, he sees holes that your really good running back even doesn't see, and he's got a niche of being able to squeeze through holes that aren't there. Um, and he's a really unique type of running back because he has a smaller frame, but he also will lower his pads and run between the tackles if he needs to. And then obviously he's really good in open space. I mean he's just making safeties miss. He's really good at doing that. He's when he hasn't been injured, he's really just had a knack for taking handoffs to the crib. I mean, he's just when you get him in open space, he makes people miss, and he's really quick. He's typically not going to get caught. He's if you give him green grass, he's going to make something happen. So that's really where it all starts and ends on offense. But as I mentioned, he's really been banged up, and Louisville had a couple extra days of rest, playing on Thursday, so maybe he's in a better place from a health standpoint this week. We'll have to see on that. Jamari Thrash, a receiver,
What kind of injury
second.
does he have, by the way?
He's been dealing with a hamstring injury, and
Okay.
as I mentioned, he missed the Pitt game, the game they lost, and that's an injury that can linger, and he's just kind of played through it, and um, I don't think he really hasn't missed a game since the loss of Pitt, and I don't know if he's would benefit from sitting out a game to really get to 100%. I don't really know the specifics, but that's really been a nagging injury that's kind of limited what he's able to do. And then Jamari Thrasher, receiver, is a is another player that's battled injury. He's second in the ACC in receiving, and really he missed the game as well earlier in the season. So yeah, they've had some injuries on offense, and they've really battled some lingering issues with their playmakers. But when you look at when you look at Jawhar Jordan, Jamari Thrash, that's where it all starts at receiver and running back. And then Isaac Urendo is another running back that's came on in replacement of Jawhar Jordan. He's had a really good couple weeks. He's had 3 touchdowns against Virginia Tech, and then he had a game winner last week against Virginia. So those are the 3 guys really at running back and receiver that have been really good for Louisville.
Yeah, absolutely. Miami's going to have their hands full trying to stop Jordan and Thrasher. Definitely one of the 2 best playmakers in all of the ACC. But let's switch over to the other side of the football as well. On defense, first, kind of what kind of defense does Louisville run here? Are there a blitz heavy team? Do they drop a lot of players in zone in a drop 8 look by any chance, or just your take on the scheme and some of the playmakers from Louisville that kind of makes them dangerous?
Yeah, Louisville runs a 4-3. They have typically they have a defensive tackle and a nose tackle. They'll typically try to have a 300-pounder and probably someone 280 plus in there in the middle, and then they have an edge rusher on the outside and a defensive end on the outside. So that's kind of a 4 down front look. And then they've got 2 inside linebackers, that are kind of over the B gap. Typically, they'll also bring down their inside linebacker from time to time to give more of a 5-man front, and kind of make that more of a 5 across look.
Yeah.
And then they'll also have they'll have obviously 2 corners, 2 safeties, but then they have a hybrid kind of a linebacker safety hybrid role that they call the star position that will cover tight ends in the pass game, but will play around the line of scrimmage in the run game too. So really, it's a 4-2-5. It's a 4-2-5 look.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned, they'll mix up to kind of get in to 5, more of a 5 down look, and then they'll also do on some passing down some. They'll bring in some dime personnel. Obviously, they'll mix it up, but traditionally, their standard look is going to be more of a, like I mentioned, a 4-2-5, and I guess maybe sometimes a 4-3. Really, that hybrid position is just kind of bounces around depending on what the offense lines up in.
Yeah.
So that's really the what they try to do scheme wise, and then from a personnel standpoint, they've got one of the best pass rushers in college football, and Ashton Gillotte leads the ACC in sacks at 10 sacks, and he's been really good. I mean, just a really good pass rusher, but he plays the run as well. Just an all around defensive end that's going to make plays. And he's a guy that's been in the program now for 3 years, and he's really just embodied what this Louisville program wants to be about. And he was a guy that was under recruited out of high school. That's really just been recruited and developed into a really nice player. At cornerback, they've got a really, really good corner in Quincy Riley that has not given up much at all this season. He plays field coverage 90% of the time. They'll move him to the field, and he's really, really good. He's a veteran. He's great in coverage. He's a disciplined guy. He knows when to give things up, when to take risks. He's a really, really good cover corner there. And then at safety, I think they've got a pair of safeties that have really played some awesome football. Devin Neal, a transfer from Baylor, and Cameron Kelly, a transfer from North Carolina. That they both are are ball hawks. They both come up with timely interceptions. Devin Neal is second in the conference in interceptions and had a huge one last week against Virginia. So he's been really good, and I just think they've got a defense that's really kind of surprised a lot of people. They've really played the run well. They're giving up less than 100 yards on the ground
Yeah.
per game, and I think just they've made plays when they needed to make plays, and they've really played complementary football for most of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. They've had some impressive performances, to say the least. I mean, shutting out Duke 23 to nothing in that game. To shut out any team is impressive. And then Virginia Tech only put 3 points on this defense as well in recent weeks. So, um, very impressive defense overall. So Miami, of course, will have to come with their A game as they have to. Every game in the ACC has been tough, but this one seems like it's going to be perhaps the one of the toughest. I mean, although they did play close with Florida State last week, so we'll see how things shake out on Saturday. It's just a 1 point spread. Um, Tie going into this game. I think I was somewhat surprised to see that, to see it just to be as low as it is, just being that Louisville has handled teams, I guess, for the most part. I mean, yeah, they did struggle with Virginia last week, as we're watching some of the highlights here, where they had to come back in the fourth quarter to beat them. But at the same time, you would think that maybe they would be favored by a few more points, but apparently Vegas is high on Miami in this game, and they think that that this will be a very close game, and I tend to agree. I tend to agree that this will be a close game. Just it all really just kind of depends on Miami's quarterback, Tyler Van Dyke, and if he doesn't turn the ball over like he has been. 11 interceptions in his last few starts. I mean, it's just been horrendous, his play as far as turning the ball over is concerned. So that is going to be the key factor in this game for me. I mean, if Miami can protect the football and not throw interceptions in the end zone, then I think they have a great chance to make this a game until the very end, because they've got the defense and the running game to kind of control the clock here. So I think if they do that, I think this could be a close game. But how do you think this game turns out on the scoreboard, Ty?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this will be a close game. I think obviously Vegas knows best, and they see this as a close game as well. I think a lot of it has to do with Louisville just hasn't had a lot of success down in Miami historically or recently. The last time they played down there, they just looked like they got swallowed whole. They looked like the moment was too big. They looked like they were intimidated. And, I think it's hard to look past the struggles they've had down there. You know, even if this is a whole different team and a whole different coaching staff, it's really hard to look past that. I'll tell you just from, in Louisville, most people, I feel like a lot of people have a nervous feeling about this game. And, I think most people are not fooled by Miami's record. They know the talent that's on the roster, the close games they've been in. I think people realize that this is not going to be any sort of an easy win or not even close to that. For me personally, I just feel like Louisville's just been a team of destiny, I guess is maybe a good word, that they have a knack for winning close games, and I think this will be another close game that that I think Louisville wins. We'll say 27-24 type game. I don't think I don't think that's a slight to Miami at all. I think Miami is much better than their record indicates, but I think that when you look at this Louisville team, they've really just found ways to win, and they've made plays at the most critical of times. And with what's at stake, with an extra couple of days to prepare, I think the external factors there with the, as I mentioned, playing on Thursday and being able to clinch a spot in the ACC championship, I think those factors will give Louisville an extra push, and I think Louisville win 27-24.
Yeah, I agree with you as far as the margin and score. I mean, I'm not exactly sure who's going to win this game, to be honest. I mean, it's a coin flip for me. But it's hard for me to believe at this point that a Tyler Van Dyke led team will lead a team to victory over a top 10 team. It's hard for me to kind of believe that at this point. Do I think Miami has the defense to stay in this game? Of course. Do I think Miami has the running game to stay in this game? Of course. I think they're great on special teams as well. But, it's all about the quarterback, right? It's all about the quarterback play. And, you mentioned that Plummer has been kind of turnover prone as well. So I think Miami will do its best to kind of shut down the run with Jordan and force Plummer to throw. And I think they are going to try to force him into mistakes. But at this point, I'm going to, side with Vegas, I guess you could say, and say that, Louisville pulls out a 1-point victory over Miami, or Miami pulls off a 1-point victory over Louisville. So to me, I think it's going to be a lower scoring game, maybe a, 22-21 type of game. But right now it's a coin flip for me of who is going to win. I think that's kind of a cop out, but later on in the week, I actually put in the actual prediction and see, which side I go with. But it's just, I'm still kind of on the fence on this one. Are you coming down for the game, Ty?
I am not. No. I will be in Louisville. There's a good contingent of Louisville fans that are making the trip, though. So
Okay.
I would prepare yourself for a lot of red at that stadium.
Okay. So certainly looking forward to it. Miami's final home game of the season, senior day for the Hurricanes. Miami will look to knock off the Louisville Cardinals on Saturday, noon kick, which I'm very, very glad to hear that this is a noon kick because, those late games, they tend to run very late. So thanks again for joining me today, Ty. I really appreciate you coming on with me for my weekly segment, Scouting the Opponent.
Hey, no problem, Marcus. Good luck to you all this weekend, and we will catch up down the road.
Absolutely, you as well. That's going to wrap it up for the Storm Tracker podcast. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on all platforms and also subscribe to this YouTube channel live from Canes County. Most importantly, subscribe to the website, canescounty.com, part of the rivals.com network. Until the next episode.